You ever have one of those mornings where you step outside and the air just feels heavier, like something's waiting to drop? Yeah, that's how it started for me, coming back home after 22 years in the Army, most of it spent overseas, thinking I was trading sandstorms for cornfields and maybe, if I was lucky, a little peace and quiet. Turns out, peace doesn't wait for you. It's something you have to fight for, even when you're standing on your own land. My name's Wade Coburn. The house was nothing fancy, two-bedroom ranch, with siding faded to the same gray as my hair these days. My dad's old red barn slumped out back, surrounded by acres that had gone to weeds after he passed. My brother tried to keep it up, but after a bad fall and an even nastier run-in with the running, at least I'd be honoring the family name. I didn't come back to make friends. I came back to be a steward, to put my boots where my roots belonged. That peace lasted about 3 days. I'd just poured my second coffee, wearing a ragged t-shirt and cargo pants, when I got my first taste of Stone Creek Estate's so-called community spirit. There was a knock at my door, the kind that says, "I'm not here to ask, I'm here to tell." Enter Karen, 50s, stiff helmet hair, sunglasses perched up like she's off-duty Secret Service, clutching a clipboard like it's just here to clarify some property expectations. Now, I almost laughed. "This isn't part of Stone Creek," I said, waving at my wild fields. "Been in my family 3 generations. No HOA jurisdiction. Here." Her smile twitched, but she didn't miss a beat. Talked about visual covenants and how farm equipment might lower their property values. You know what I mean? That kind of neighbor. My tractor showed up in their digital newsletter, right under the headline, "New Neighbor Raises Safety Concerns." My friend in town texted me a screenshot. "Watch your back. She's coming for you." Yeah, that happened. But here's the thing. I had the paperwork. Deeds, surveys, permits, the works. This land wasn't just mine. It was mine in black and white. Every time Karen pushed, checked the boundaries, shrugged, and left. But the pressure kept building. Eggs on my mailbox, neighbors staring, Karen taking pictures from her Lexus. Harvest season came, and I figured if I was going down, I'd go down doing what mattered. That morning, 5:30 sharp, I fired up the old tractor, thinking of Dad, and got to work. I saw Karen standing on a garden stool, leaning over the fence, filming me like I was running a meth lab. She started yelling about dust, diesel fumes, her patio cushions, said I was disturbing the peace. "This is a farm," I told her. "It's harvest. There's dust. There's noise. That's how it's always been." She threatened to bring the HOA down on me. I just kept working. By that night, there was another email, formal, urgent, cease agricultural operations. Immediately, I laughed, forwarded it to my lawyer, then went out and cleaned the tractor. She posted a sign on the walking path about dangerous machinery, called in the county, called the cops. Each time, I stayed calm, showed my paperwork, let them walk the property, and watched as they left shaking their heads. Still, Karen doubled down, dumped yard waste over the fence, had code inspectors checking my fuel storage, snapped pictures like she was the FBI. I started a folder on my desktop called HOA Nonsense, time-stamped photos, videos, every scrap of evidence I could gather. One day, after a run-in with the inspectors, I ran into Deputy Angela Booker at the hardware store, someone I'd served with, tough as nails. She gave me the look. "Be careful, Wade. She's got friends on the zoning board. Document everything." I tightened up my security, cameras on every gate, every angle. Let her try something. Then, right on cue, it happened. Karen barreled her Lexus down the easement road, slammed into my tractor, and tried to blame me for assault with a vehicle. She hurled a rock at the windshield, cracked it, and called 911. But here's where her plan fell apart. The whole thing was on camera. Officer Cordell, who'd known me since he was a kid, reviewed the footage, saw her story unravel in real time. She sputtered, demanded supervisors. And within days, folks were digging into the HOA's finances. Turns out, Karen had been writing herself checks, skipping votes, spending dues like Monopoly money. The board called an emergency. She filed a civil suit for emotional distress, tried to paint me as the villain. My lawyer filed a countersuit for harassment and property damage, attached the receipts, the footage, and a request for a full financial audit of the HOA. The judge took one look at the evidence, saw right through her, and ruled in my favor. ordered her to pay restitution, referred the HOA for a county audit, and just like that, the house of cards came down. Karen stepped down, her house went up for sale, and Stone Creek started to heal. The new board apologized, neighbors waved again. Tractor that just won't quit. Karen didn't get it, not really, but maybe the rest of the neighborhood did. Because justice, when it finally lands, isn't loud, it's steady. It's the silence that comes. After the noise fades, the feeling of having held your line, no matter how many times someone tries to push you back. So tell me, what would you have done? Have you ever had to fight for your own fairness? Because in the end, that's the story that matters that you'd think after everything. After Karen packed up her clipboard and her threats and finally rolled that battered Lexus out of Stone, waiting to see if you're going to let your guard down. The weeks after Karen's departure felt strange. Not empty, just different. I'd wake up before dawn, boots crunching on frost. Mattered, but it never came. The quiet felt heavier at first, almost suspicious, like the land itself was holding its breath. And yet, something else started to grow, something I hadn't expected. The man alone showed up at my gate with a plate of cornbread and her son in tow. "You ever thought about running a community garden?" she asked, half joking. "Not unless you want corn everywhere." The deputy sheriff who'd warned me to document everything. We'd sit by the window, talking about everything except the mess that brought us together. Angela grinned. "Stone Creek feels lighter." She just smiled. "Well, sometimes a town needs a few more fence posts." Meanwhile, the new board started making changes. Monthly meetings at the community center, financials posted online. Actual transparency for once. Glenn, the retired dentist who'd helped oust Karen, showed up at my door one evening with a fresh-baked loaf of bread and an apology. "We should have asked more questions," he said, voice low. "We let her speak for us, and you paid the price." I shrugged. "You know how it is. Folks like Karen, they talk loud so nobody else gets a word in. Glad you're changing that." But even as things improved, there were still echoes of the old fight. A few of Karen's diehard supporters grumbled about outsiders, about how the neighborhood just isn't the same. You could see them at meetings, arms crossed, scanning every agenda for proof that the new way was somehow a threat. I didn't rise to the bait. After you've spent years overseas, watching people, I was working late in the barn, tinkering with the same old tractor Karen had tried to destroy, when I heard a soft knock. It was Richard, one of the oldest residents in Stone Creek, a man who'd kept his head down through all the drama. He handed me a tin of peanut brittle. "Don't let them drag you into another mess," he said quietly. "Some of us know who really saved this place." I thanked him. I checked the fence line, steel gate still standing, cameras still blinking, but the sense of threat had faded. Julie's son rode his bike down the gravel road most weekends, pausing to wave. Limits, real oversight, no more blank checks. "Only one rule," I said. "Nobody knocks on my door before 9 a.m. Glenn laughed. "Fair enough." But just as the town started to breathe easy, developer who'd built Stone Creek was sniffing around, looking for ways to expand. New roads, new houses, maybe even plans to buy up adjoining land. I started getting letters, polite at first, then insistent. Offers to purchase the field, the barn, even the unused back lot near the creek. Money was good, too good, if you know what I mean. At first, I ignored it. Then, late one night, I found a pair of men walking the eastern fence line, flashlights in hand, talking numbers just loud enough to hear through the cold air. I stepped out onto the porch, flashlight in my hand. Voice steady as I called out, "Can I help you, gentlemen?" They shuffled, awkward, then offered some line about surveying for future infrastructure. I laughed. "That infrastructure's called private property," I said, "and it's not for sale." You'd think they'd get the message. But the next week, a notice arrived, this time from the county. Rezoning application for the land next to mine. Glenn showed up, so did Julie, even Richard. Half the neighborhood filled that meeting room, standing up, one after another, saying no to more concrete, no to losing what little wild space we had. Or maybe it just takes one stubborn farmer, refusing to move. Either way, the county backed off, the rezoning didn't pass. The developers left empty-handed, muttering about local politics. Resting, and even the old tractor seemed to hum with pride. One evening, Julie's son knocked on my door with a school assignment. He wanted to interview me about protecting the land. We sat at the kitchen table, him peppering me with questions, me trying to explain in plain words what it means to hold your ground. Does it ever get easier? He asked, eyes wide. I smiled no, but it gets more meaningful. You know, people talk a lot about justice, about standing up for what's right. They make it sound simple. Bad guy loses, good guy wins. But life doesn't work that way. Sometimes, the real victory is just holding on long enough for folks to remember who they are and why they cared in the first place. Sometimes, you find out you're not alone, even when you think you. Tell me your story. Do you believe every community needs a Karen to keep them honest, or does it take something more? Where do you draw your line in the dirt? I want to hear it. And sometimes, that's the real harvest.